Hey guys, this is Tom Box, and welcome to the 2023 damage report for February. But before I jump into the damage report, because the other video launch included the promo for our new merch drop, we have, of course, new tournament sleeves for the Onyx Black. If you guys like the white sleeves, these black ones are awesome. Took us a year to develop this one, which is a gunmetal black, which is really cool. I've been featuring in the other one. And we also dropped a new matte. I've been waiting for this one for some time now. This was with the MST print Vibrant Red. Look how bright it is. It's crazy of how bright this is. And yes, it is actually that bright. And there's the blue side as well. Super vibrant. I didn't think I was going to like it at first, but then when it arrived, I actually loved it. So yeah, here we are. You guys can check out MSTmerch.com. Anyways, let's get into the damage report. And let's jump into this, starting with refreshing our minds with the ban list. So we have our context. We have Tearlaments, Yugioh, Artifact Scythe, Berry Statue of Stormwinds, and the Spright Elf, all banned. To 1, we have Havness, Merly, and Sharon, all three sisters being limited, and we have Yugioh, Kelbeck, Keldo, and Mudora, all to 1 as well. Every single Ishizu fairy hit to 1, and then we have Ancient Fairy Dragon coming back on March 10th, going back to 1, but that's later on, I'm guessing, for the errata. For cards going to 3, they are free real estate. There is Deshrudo. I think this one does matter. I think it will have some level of impact. Jet Synchron Olan, I don't really care. Servant of Endymion. This is the 1 pendulum per ban list policy. It does feel like that. I mean, it's been like that for like almost like 2-3 years now. Then there is the True King of Disaster, Lithosagium. This one does matter. I think there's an agenda with this one. I think Konami thinks the extra deck is too safe. They've been releasing more and more cards that can attack the extra deck while it's still there. So take that as you will here. And Yatagarasu and Spiral Resort, none of those really matter. Master's Plan is still, I believe that is still banned. For why this looks very familiar, if you guys watched the How Tearlaments Will Die video, yeah, all of this stuff was mentioned. And the scary part isn't that, oh yeah, of course they're gonna ban this stuff, Tom. This is like the tier 0 deck. Yeah, the scary part is the accuracy in terms of determining their numbers. If that was a banlist prediction, that would have been the most accurate one yet. Even the Barrier Statue and the Kikalos both were like, yeah, they're probably gonna go to 0. But I didn't say that they were all gonna hit all at once like this. I thought that they're gonna tier it up, but you know, Konami decided to go, you know what, we're gonna pay D, all of the above. And yeah, it seems like the entire thing was just imported in. What a great coincidence it was. I'm probably gonna make more banlist R&D in the future just to see what happens. And to get the winners and losers, this is an overall summary to what's going on. Kashtira did not get touched. In OCG, when they hit like Tearlaments, they hit Kashtira with them. And they also hit Bystials. So Kashtira and Bystials are definitely winners on this ban list. And the other winner is probably going to be Sword Soul. They remain untouched, but that's kind of to be expected. But that also means they become a lot more playable. In a level playing field, that deck is just so versatile and able to handle so many things that it's sticking around. Any Despia deck is also going to do very well. I think dragons are going to do well as well. But one thing I forgot to put in the winners, I would say dinosaurs. They're very underrated right now. But Lithosagium and basically playing True King Dinosaur, you have a new rank 9 to go into that is a board removal. So I wouldn't underestimate that deck at all. I think there is a lot of promise within dinosaurs, but we'll talk about that in top tier potential. In terms of our loser, our 3-time loser is going to be Tearlaments, but sadly, that's not even the biggest loser. I think Spright and probably, I think the one that really died the hardest is probably the Floowandereeze. But yeah, let's get into each of these reports. Okay, damage report number 1. This is gonna be the one that took the biggest hit in my opinion, and that is Floowandereeze and not Tearlaments. Yes, they lost 1 to 2 copies of Barrier Statue of Stormwinds, and that is huge. This entire deck, in terms of everything that makes them function, can be counted on 5 fingers. They have M-Pen for attack, control, whatever, and it's also the Searcher, plus it is the effect Floodgate. Then they have Ryza as the board removal. Then they have Barrier Statue in the middle here. That is their Floodgate for special summoning. Then they have Apex Aven for negation and D-Shifter for shutting out the turn. Now they lost their middle finger. They can't give you the bird, and guess what? You get the special summon in their face because of it. And so how do you repair this deck? If you want to go into the next format, then you can use Harpy's Featherstorm, but I don't think that's the accurate direction. You should probably just main deck evenly matches. You can use that to deal with the Kashtira matchup that you can deal with, and it's also a good card in general. I mean, It's better than nothing, I suppose, but you should probably put in some board breakers of some kind, in my opinion, if you want to replace this, because there is no replacement. Because this card is such a pivotal part of the combo. It is part of the end board of the combo, so I do consider this as Konami banning one of your boss monsters, and it should be treated as such. And based off of like how Konami was banning cards, like Tearlaments got hit like severely hard, like ridiculously hard, but this was like, in comparison, they had a massacre, you got sniped in the head, and that's how bad it is, because this was a precision hit, and we already know the result of this. Like Master Duel, when they hit this card off of Master Duel, immediately it fell down 2 tiers, because this is how much it was holding up the entire game. It was holding the floodgate, preventing your opponent from playing, and now they get to bypass all of this because special summoning opens way too many options for you to even handle. And now you're gonna maybe have to play other cards. Maybe go back to that counter trap that if your opponent special summons a card, you can negate that card, and now they're stuck with normal summoning. You might be going down that line instead. That's just one of the opinions. But when it comes to like the banlist hitting stuff, it looks kind of weird because they got hit so many cards for Tearlaments, and you got hit by 1. But does that mean like 1 floodgate searchable monster is equivalent to a bunch of interaction? So, you know, it kind of gets you thinking a little when it comes to that context. But regardless, that's just how it is. They're going to be falling down a couple of tiers. Report number 2, we got the second most hurt deck, Tearlaments, and ironically, this is like the one that's actually on fire because of the amount of stuff that it lost. Deck losses: Keldo, Kelbeck, Mudora, Yugioh, Merle, Sharon, and Havdis all losing 2 copies each. That's about like what, 14 cards naturally, 15 if you include the instant fusion, and if you include the last 2 cards from the extra kit, Callus and Spright Elf, boom, that is a 17 card hit. That is a massive damage. You're hemorrhaging cards at this point. It's like Jesse Cotton when he dropped his deck in the water. I guess you didn't lose that much. But in terms of deck repair, sorry, Jesse, we have 3 King of the Swamps, 1 Polymerization, 2 Shaddoll cards. Maybe you can play some Shaddoll cards. I mean, OCG play with the Shaddoll cards just so that they can get into some of the window locking. I think it's probably worth playing, in my opinion. You need some level of floodgate. We talked about how strong floodgates are in the previous report. You can go back into the floodgate routes. I mean, originally it was already there. That's how it started. You can also play Guardian Chimera. And don't forget to add 3 Tearlaments Cashier so you can still mill cards during your opponent's turn. But the amount of stuff that you can do during the opponent's turn have definitely like shot all the way down. Like really, really bad. Combo losses. Mill A combo is gone. You're not milling 8 cards. Same name milling is also gone. The feeling of Havdis milling a Havdis or a Sharon milling a Sharon. Those are super feel-good moments. And that's not happening anymore because it's not possible. We're literally catching up to OCG. Spright Elf into Merle Fusion, that was another interaction that you had during the opponent's turn, because if the Merle Fusion, or not Merle Fusion, but if Merle milled into a fusion play, then that would have resulted in your opponent basically not being able to play. Like, they have to deal with your Predaplant now or something like that. And opening multiple names will now equate to being a brick unless you fix it. If you open all Merle, Sharon, and Havdis, then your only play now is to activate Sharon and shuffle back perhaps one of those names into your deck, or maybe both names into your deck so that you can mill them out later on, because it's not that great overall, and your successful chance of fusion is so low, because even if you put it back, they're at the bottom of the deck now. So you're gonna need to find some way to shuffle the deck to get back into properly fusing, otherwise you're not going to be able to play. I think another card that you can try to replace some of these things with is Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial might actually be worth playing. Even Foolish Burial Goods is worth playing because of the Trivi Karma, that card that lets you search for any the cards that mentions Visa Starfrost. That's an option, and I think Visa Starfrost might also be another option that you can definitely try, because Visa Starfrost can pop a card to summon itself as a level 6 tuner. That could give you access to Baron, and that's why I wanted to include Destrudo, Guardian Chimera, and all those other cards that maybe give you a bit of a synchro line as an option. I think someone's going to solve this. I think these are just some of the opening points that you can try out, just so they can mix and match some of these cards. Maybe you can even find some way to play like Gigantic Spright again. Like, you can jump back to the roots of Danger Tearlaments. That was a very strong deck as well. Anyways, continuing on, yeah, you definitely need alternative fusing method. I mean, if you play Poly, that's not even that bad, because Poly equates to playing 2 fusions without burning one of your names. If you burn away like a Merle and a Sharon in that play, then you got the summon through Poly And you did not get that through, say, the other way of just using a name, which means all the names are still live, and you're going to proc one of the names anyway, so you might be able to find a shortcut. I think maybe you could even play Fusion Substitute. I don't know, maybe that's an option. So, in terms of my final remarks for this deck, Konami essentially just Gus Fringed this entire deck. This is basically the deck got defunded. They're going through a bit of a reform phase, and the next time you see Tearlaments, it'll be a different beast altogether, or it'll be a beast that you recognize from the past. It's a little more damage than OCG, but it's definitely more repairable. I mean, Pearl of Reino still have 3, and we still have 3 Rise Heart, so it's different. I would say look forward to Jesse Cotton taking the responsibility of fixing this deck. Report number 3 is going to be Sprites. I mean, these are the decks that took bans. I think they took the biggest L's of the format, and everything else, you know, is for the better for it. So deck losses, 2 copies of Spright Elf, you just take those out. How do you replace it? I think one of the options is Bujinki Ahashima. I think this card is actually really, really strong, and probably you're going to put it in even if you play the Gishki package. If you play the Gishki package, I mean, I've played the Gishki package without the Sprites. It was still good, just not as, you know, not as good, because the skill ceiling is a lot lower in terms of the interaction that you are left with. So that's a bit unfortunate. But Ahashima being able to just summon out monsters from the graveyard and hand with the same level gives you access to the Totally Awesome through the Swap Frog. So that's an option to kind of fix it. But hey, maybe you can just play it for the 1 week that's available. You get the YCS Leon format, just like Edison format. That was like for one format. For one event. Now you have the one event for YCS Leon, or yeah, Lyon, the one in France, I believe. Anyways, combo losses, of course, you lost the major protection from Spright Elf. There's no double toad play anymore unless you want to play double cross. Double cross can still get you there for the double toad play. I think it's okay. I think it's worth playing more now because of it. Toad access is a little bit harder, but you have to basically burn into Ahashima to make it, if you want to make it like solo without like the access of other cards. But that's not completely true. If you're playing Gishki Spright, if you start off with a Swap Frog, if you can summon out that Swap Frog pretty early on and just put the swap in the graveyard, if you go into Neri Manus, then you're set. You're done. You can get both Neri Manus and the Swap Frog together on board and then perform the rest of the combo, which would be a lot more lackluster now that I think about it, because Elf was a pretty pivotal part to the follow-up play where you just build a bunch of stuff where it becomes the unbreakable board. But it's more breakable, I would say, but not that easy. It's still like a triple to quad negate board. Yeah, it's pretty up there. So what do you lose? So you can't really play on your opponent's turn anymore. You lose your once per turn monster reborn, which is also very, very strong effect, and the targeting protection is also gone. But Gishki Spright is probably the direction I would take this deck. It's a good option, but you can convert this into an engine. As long as at some point you can get 2 Link 2s or a rank 2 in there, boom, instantly you can go to Gigantic Spright and just spam out the rest of the engine. That's basically what Tearlaments did with the danger stuff. So yeah, that was the Tearlaments danger Spright stuff. But for my final remarks, okay, one thing I kind of want to point out here is that Konami's really been pushing more and more towards targeting based interactions, but in terms of like the end point of that interaction, it's like no longer about destroying the card or sending the card to the graveyard. It's always been about that before, but it was like all non-targeting send away. It's like Dingirzu, for instance, you know, from 2018 to 2020, it's been like that for some time. But it seems like we're moving back. We're like downscaling the power so that targeting is still a very big part of it. And, you know, targeting immunity is like something that you have to earn again, where it's just not given to like every single monster, because that's like Dragoon, for instance, or like Avramax. You know, back in that generation, so many things were untargetable where you needed to have like a power crept effect of non-targeting, non-destructive removal to get rid of it. It's like the Dragoon effect. Dragoon was the peak of that, if you know what I'm saying. So yeah, just convert it into a different engine. You can play Springen Spright. I've seen this. I'm not sure how they're going to pivot that, but Springen Spright mixed with Theory and stuff, it was really interesting, and Gishki Spright being one of the other ways to fix it. And finally, their tier potential list. So for top tier potential, high tier potential, hidden potential, all of these guys, I would say it's their expectation to perform, not necessarily where they sit on a tier list, okay? Just putting that out there. I mean, a lot of the decks up there, they're expected to perform a lot better than the ones below, but that doesn't mean the stuff below aren't top tier, and maybe I would be surprised. Usually, there's like 1 or 2 decks that are supposed to be at a different level. You'll just see when they come up. But one deck that I forgot to put in here is Dinosaurs. I do think Dinosaurs deserve to be in the high tier potential because UCT is a very scary card, and again, Lithosage being able to look into the being able to look into the extra deck and maybe mix it with True King and mix it in with the Generator boss monster now, I think there's a potential there. But let me just jump back into the top tier potential. Branded Bestial. I think that should be the deck that we focus. Should we take out Bestial cards now? No, because Bestial's weakness are Bestials, so we should still play Bestials. Sure, they're not going to be as good against like Cash Tier, but if you look at all the other decks up here, a lot of them will be affected by Bestial cards. So yeah, once the meta starts shaping up and you see that there are a lot more dark and light decks, you'll stick with the Bestial stuff. And then the Naturia stuff will creep back into the format because they're not getting countered as hard. But next there's Kashtira. Kashtira would basically take the place of Floowandereeze. It's the one deck that is really annoying and it's a blow if you don't prepare for it, but somehow not the best deck. I mean, Branded Bestial has a much higher skill ceiling, a better recurrence, better recovery. Kashtira does not have a solid recovery unless you play both trap and spell to kind of just recycle all your cards, but it's very difficult because your boards are technically constantly getting wiped. Once you get into, you know, the format getting more solved, you're going to see that people are going to beat Kashtira by blowing them out, hitting them both front and back row, and that's just how it is. Gishki Sprights, they kind of take the spot of Sprights. Not too much to explain. It's going to be more water-based, more negation, more monster-based negation, but they're going to be able to interact with you through Dark Ruler no more because of their trap card. Yeah, they're going to be able to summon out another negation out on board, and you're just not going to be ready for it. So they're not going to completely die, but just don't write them off. And if you do wipe their board afterwards, then yeah, you kind of got them. Tearlaments, yes, even after a massive hit, they are still here in the top tier. They're expected to perform because OCG managed to perform with a completely crippled list, even with a banned Kit Kalos, and they're still #1 on representation. That's how good they are. And here's a bystander looking at everyone fighting for the top spot. Sword Soul that just slowly crept back into the format. With the amount of stuff not happening to them because Tearlaments like Ishizu is gone, Sword Soul can make a stand, and that's why I believe Sword Soul is back on the top tier track once again, because this is one of the most versatile decks, and the more skilled you are, the more rewarding it is. This is the one deck that can do it. And one of the more underrated cards, we have Dark Worlds. Dark World, Grapha, hand looping, all that stuff is still here. And again, it's another dark deck, which is why the Bestial stuff should stick around. Otherwise, Dark World's going to hand loop you to death before you even get a chance to play. And they're not even that bad, even in the current format. So it just goes to show that if you don't account for the graveyard in the next format, you're going to lose to these decks, and these decks are going to surface right to the top. And Bestial Dragon Link, another deck that's probably going to surface. High tier potential Naturia, because of the Ishizu cards that were lost, that affected the build of the deck and it affects their consistency. But don't get me wrong, they're still really strong deck, and they can definitely play like Vertiself cards to kind of like facilitate some of the stuff that they missed. Tri-Brigade variants, I think this is more again on a branded variant with it's branded variant. I think it kind of merges more with branded right now because they have Lindworm, and Lindworm leads to other plays, and blend it with Cartesia. If there is a drop in Bestial plays, then Drytrons are probably going to surface back to the top. They are very scary. They kind of remain as the most annoying deck, and they can also play Vanity's Ruler. Again, Floodgating is probably on the rise again. Runic, I don't know if this is going to be Runic Naturia or Runic whatever, but I think Runic Naturia might be like one of the better builds for this, but Runics are probably still around. Labyrinth definitely moved up an entire tier because they are very strong. They're a trap-based deck, and they're ready to just be the control deck of the format. They basically replace the Eldritch builds. Springans, I looked into this, I got comboed by this, and I realized, oh my god, their stuff is pretty nasty. I mean, they can build some pretty nasty board, but they also got impacted by Spright Elf getting hit. So I don't know where they stand right now, but knowing that Tally Ho contributed to a lot of this really scares me. Exorcister still sticking around, and a hidden potential. I always put Madolche on the map here, but like Madolche is just one of those decks. If someone really wants to perform well with it, they can. There's Verniself builds. They still have the Earth Fairy stuff. I mean, the deck is naturally made up of Earth Fairies. They can still play Herald of the Orange Light if they want to. They can even play Green Light. There's a lot of options for them there. Then there is Floowandereeze. I mean, they dropped 2 whole potential tiers just because they lost Barrier Statue, and it's warranted. We've seen what happened in Master Duel, how if you look at every single deck at the very top, they're all capable of breaking the board. They're all capable of not triggering things. So there has to be some way that they need to do to floodgate out the opponent or skip their turn. Otherwise, they're not making it through the format. Next, Eldritch builds. I'm just thinking about this in the context of the new Odeon cards. I'm not going to write them off because the new Odeon cards provide them with another interaction. Not only can they pop your cards, banish your stuff from the graveyard, they can now negate stuff on the field. And I don't know how I feel about that, but at least that card is not searchable, so there's that going for it. But you can also like pair it with like other annoying cards. Next, Math Mech. I don't know why I left Math Mech in here, to be honest. The list was already kind of pre-filled. I was just replacing stuff. That could have also been the dinosaur spot, to be honest, because I think dinosaur is just a little bit more relevant. Next is the Ninja. Okay, Ninja actually could have been in the higher tier, to be honest, because like Ninjas, Yugioh is a strong card. Yugioh flips 2 cards face down. They can't change their battle position, but that only applies to the opponent. Yugioh himself can target himself and can flip himself face down. Then they can flip it back up. It's their option because that's not the opponent's card. So there's that. But in combination, also Tabari is a lot stronger too now. The level 1 wing beast guy, because now they can tag into the new fusion like Yagura or something. I forgot his name. But that monster essentially just banishes a card. In other words, that particular monster that cannot be destroyed by a battle or card effect can now fuse during the battle phase or the main phase to turn into a ninja that just banishes another card. That's why ninjas are performing so well, because the number of interactions that they now actually have is more than you think. They can start off with a turn where they just summon a Hanzo, set 5 back row, and you still die. Yeah. They don't need to go wombo combo. They don't need to be a combo deck. They can just be a control deck, and that's the thing that you should not underestimate about ninjas. Because once they start booking all your stuff face down, they're just going to attack you directly. Because whatever that they had before, like, they can just tribute it and contact fuse into Mazen, and Mazen just turns all the ninjas into direct attackers. That's why the ninja slot is like a serious spot. I would put them in similar power levels to, say, Labyrinth, almost. Yeah, actually, no, I would put them at some similar levels now. Then there's also Generators, but I think Generators, the level 9 is, or the rank 9 is likely going to be seeing play more as options for other people to play generic 9s and add also a Jormungandr into their deck, and then they have a double removal. I think it's a pretty cool concept as well, but Generators, don't underestimate them. Plunder Patrol, I had to put them here because Yord gives them more stuff to play, and Yord lets them counter Kashtira by giving them a token. So Kashtira, you're gonna need to find some way to tribute some tokens. Otherwise, everyone's gonna find ways to shove stuff over so that you can't perform your very basic opening play. Yeah, but I'm sure there are going to be more decks that are going to be even more powerful. I want to say thank you guys for watching this damage report. Tomorrow, there's also a market watch. Don't forget to check out MSTmerch.com because we have our new black sleeves and our new awesome mat. Yes, this is a double mat here. I can't really show you guys, but thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Good luck to your one weekend format before we actually move on to the next format. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Also, I'm going to be updating all my deck lists because, you know, Banlist.